Hey everyone, this is Stan Heller. You know, Canadian retirees and investors saving for retirement have been confronted with an increasingly difficult and volatile market in 2022. The TSX Composite is down over 2% year to date, but it would be substantially lower if not for the performance of the petroleum stocks. The situation is the same in the US stock market. So the question people are asking now, should I continue to hold my energy stocks after such a long run up? And is it okay to buy more? As always, we turn to VectorVest for the answers. We'll start with Canada. And when we open the Viewers tab, we see at the left the sector viewer. We can highlight that. And then we can look at the strongest sectors in Canada. There's 39 sectors, so those are the broad businesses within a fairly narrow business profile. And petroleum is right at the top. The RT ranking of 1 is based on the relative timing indicator over here at the right. And the relative timing indicator is a very smart indicator. On a scale of 0 to 2, it shows the direction of the trend, the strength and the magnitude of the trend. So on a scale of 0 to 2, we have just 7 sectors that are above 1 that have some upside strength at the current moment. Now, we need to look at the graphs to see the current direction. Some of these could be starting to lose momentum and others may be coming up, but we'll take a look at that on the graphs going forward. So there are some defensive sectors that are performing well: utilities, real estate management, investment trusts, REITs, and telecoms are in the top 15 in the sectors. And then if we go to the next slide and look at the industry viewer, the strongest industry groups in Canada, and once again, there's 122 industry groups, and we can see U.S. exploration production is ranked number 1. And as we go down, there are more industry groups related to petroleum, and then we have insurance, again, a bit of a defensive industry that shows up with an RT of 1.26. Now here the RT scores, we have more that are above 1, so there is some opportunities within the individual industries that we could take a look at. And then if we look at the US market, the strongest sectors in the sector viewer, petroleum, again, number 1. It's been up there pretty much most months in 2022 outside of July and August, but there it is, right back to number 1 and a strong relative timing score. Now there are 41 sectors in the US side, and utilities, ETFs, banks, chemicals, those are some of the stronger defensive types of sectors. And on the industry group, then the wider business descriptions here, and you can see again we have more petroleum industries right at the top, 222 industry groups in the US market, and still petroleum dominating the industries. So let's go ahead. By the way, the highlighted industry group, when you've highlighted a group, you'll notice the average values for our indicators and metrics are displayed in the bottom rows. So petroleum US royalty is part of petroleum sector, and you can see the price compared to value, the upside potential with the RV score, again 0 to 2 scale. Relative safety, just slightly less than fair for that particular industry, but the RT, very, very strong. All right, so from there, let's go into the program and just have a closer look. We'll start with Canada. And I've taken us right to the Viewers tab up here at the top and opened up the sector viewer to start with. So there we are, the sector viewer. So what we can do now is graph all of our sectors, and I'm basically using the VectorVest default layout. You can see it here. When you left click on it, that's your default layout. And for the relative timing, rather than the individual relative timing, I've got a 40 period moving average of relative timing. That's the middle of the graph. And then when you're looking at sectors and industry groups, you can also add that RT ranking that we saw in the viewers. And it's just under the parameters. So if I took it off here and removed it, I can just go to add parameter, capital appreciation, and you'll see RT ranking when you're looking for sectors and industry groups. There it is there. And when I right click again, I can change the style, in other words, the colors and the thickness of the line, and I'll make it a thicker line and a different color. All right, so now we have our RT ranking displayed, and what I like about that is it's a dynamic display. It's not just a stationary number in the viewer. We can actually see the trend of the RT. In terms of price on sectors and industry groups, we'd like to see price crossing above the 40 period moving average and holding. That shows a really good, strong trend. And of course, these peaks and valleys and peaks are opportunities for entries and maybe taking profits or getting a little bit more defensive at the top. So let's look at the RT ranking on petroleum. And so you can see it's been, it fell before the start of the year and then started to climb beginning in September 2021. It actually rose into the top 5 rankings of sectors somewhere here in October. Actually late, get my date line on, and so September, late September, it rose, and you can see the average price of all the stocks in the sector were starting to move up. And back here, same thing happened. We pulled back, very clear from the RT ranking. Notice the 40 moving average of RT was peaking out as well, so you might expect a little bit of a slowdown or even a pullback, and we got the pullback, and then we started to rise again. And since January 5th, when the average price of the stocks in the business sector crossed above the 40 period moving average, we've been in that top 10 of all the sectors since about January 6. And then you can look at the other sectors, but it's not nearly as pretty volatile. Now, when RT ranking was moving up, that shows that paper was outperforming the other sectors, and so there was some opportunity there with some of the stocks in the sector on these occasions, but much more challenging, just like the overall market. And insurance, even though it's been outperforming the other sectors and the RT ranking has been moving up and into the top 10. In fact, it's back here, it's the second ranked sector, tied with tied with paper. It's just bear market rallies here all the way along. So very, very challenging to make money in that sector. Utility, a lot of strength from mid-February to middle March, or really even the middle of April. And then it really pulled back quickly. So you really do need to keep your eye on the RT indicator. And I like the 40 period moving average of RT as another clear indication of trend. And of course, the average price of all the stocks in the utility crossing above the 40 period moving average gives you an opportunity to make some money within those some of those leading stocks. So I'm just going to take us quickly back to the leading sector. It was petroleum. Notice again on January 4th, price was firmly above the 40 period moving average, and it stayed there pretty much all the way through, finding support at the 40 period other than a couple of days in here. So let's close out and we'll right click on the petroleum sector, view the stocks in the business sector. And so we can now see there's 146 stocks in petroleum. And from here, I've got the top 30 showing, and I can quick test them all. Let me take the date first back to that January 4th date, and we can see which were the top 30 stocks at that time. There's January 4th. I love that about VectorVest. We can go back in time and see everything that VectorVest had to say about each of the stocks, what values they were giving the stocks. So here we have the top 30. Let's just go ahead and quick test them all. So this is just a look from point A to point B, price gain or loss during that period. So again, January 4th to June 9th, in this case, we'll run the test. And you can see the average gain of all 30 stocks is 62%. That works out to 146% annualized. And there's the broad market index down 11.4%. So these stocks have performed extremely well. The top VST stocks are at the top of the list, the ones that were leading back on January 4th. So some really good stocks to consider there. A couple of losers. You can see GasX and TNZ did lose, but other than that, we've got 28 winners out of 30 stocks. So very powerful. And of course, you see a lot of the buy rating, so that's telling you that the sector is very strong. And if I come to the stock viewer in VectorVest, just another indication that petroleum stocks are still the place to be. They might be having some volatility, some up and down days, but overall, it's still the top performing sector and industries in our Canadian market. If I go to the stock viewer and we scroll down the list, and you can see out of the top 30, if I go over to the right, we can see that I think all of them are petroleum companies. So it just tells you there's strength in petroleum. And when we start to see fewer petroleum stocks showing up in the stock viewer, the petroleum sector and industry starting to fall and lose ground to other sectors and industries, then we know it's time to change course a little bit and downsize our holdings in the petroleum side of things. But we're not there yet, even though I think on today it might be a little bit of a down day for petroleum. It's a down day for the overall market. All right, so and then we can do the same on the US side. Just start with the sector viewer on the US side. So we see the petroleum right at the top, and we graph them all using that same layout. And you can see petroleum as of January 11th climbed into the top 3 RT ranking. So it was outperforming the other 40 sectors at that point. The average price of all the stocks in the sector was above the 40 moving average. A little bit of volatility in here, and then it's continued to rise, a little bit of a downside today. But overall, very, very strong from January 11th. And let's just see utility again, a little stronger overall you'll find more stocks in all the sectors in the US than you will in Canada, so not quite as much volatility than when you have fewer stocks. But here's the third leading sector, and just look, it's mostly been in a downtrend and lots of volatility. Um, it is outperforming the other sectors, but very difficult to make headway when you see a graph like this. So January 11th was that date on petroleum. And so once again, you can go right click on the petroleum sector, view the stocks in the business sector. And when that comes up to the top, 286 petroleum stocks in the US market. And I can change my date to January 11th to see which were the leading stocks back on January 11th, rated by value, safety, and timing. So there's January 11. And so I've got 20 showing here out of the 279. Let's quick test them all. And 61% average gain from the basket, up 149% annualized rate of return, and that outperforms the broad market in the US, 13.9%, the VectorVest index, composite index. And if I left click on percent price gain, we can see BTE, Baytex, Canadian company, right at the top of the list. So quite a few Canadian companies are showing the way up at the top, Vermilion and Synovus, for example. So it's a really cool technique. And so if you're into petroleum stocks right now, there's still plenty of upside potential, it seems to me. We'll wait to see a movement on our sector and industry graphs. Notice on the US side, there's 222 industry groups. And just as we did for sectors, you can go into the industry. I'll go here in the US side again and click on the industry. And we can run the same graph layout once again. So US royalty is right at the top currently. And so I could look at the price from here, for example. We got above the 40 period moving average. The 40 moving average of RT was rising. And look at the RT ranking, or outperforming all 121 other industries in the US market for pretty much all of 2022. But this was the great opportunity to come in, even though back here we were outperforming the other industry groups. We really like to see the average price of all the stocks get above the 40 period moving average. That happened on February 28. So if I come back on royalty and view the stocks in the industry group, and there's just 16 stocks in this particular group, but I'll take our date calendar back to that February 28th group, and you can see some of the leading stocks from there. So these were the leaders, and I won't look at all 16, but maybe let's look at the top 10, for example, and do a quick test of the top 10. And just in 3.5 months, 4 months, we have a gain of 53% on average. Interesting, some of the leading stocks from a percent gain came a little bit further down the list. So your graphs will be very helpful to you to stay with the leaders. All right, so that's a way we can tell the strength or weakness of the individual business groups, the sectors, and the industry groups as well, and make a decision about when it might be time to lighten up on our petroleum stocks. But for now, all the petroleum sectors, the sector and the industries are right at the top of our viewers. So it's not time to lighten up just yet unless you feel there's a change coming, but we're not seeing it. So if you like what you see, you can, if you're not a subscriber, you can try VectorVest risk-free for 30 days and just $9.95 for a 30-day trial. Try everything out. You can call 1-888-658-7638 to take your order. And if you like this kind of video, just smash that like button. That attracts more people to our videos, and so it just helps grow our profile on the YouTube channel. And for product support, 1-888-658-7638. I can be reached at stan.heller@vectorvest.ca. And I want to thank you for watching.